So on the line we have current customers, potential customers, some sales reps. We have Ricky Vescovaci. He is the National Channel Manager here for EFI. Ricky, you want to say hello?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining our Wide Format Wednesdays webinar. We're very excited this morning. I want to thank all of the folks from Plaskolite as well as from EFI that have been pulling these webinars on a monthly basis together. It really is exciting, not only for our customers, but also for our partners and our sales reps. And again, we're in the next half of these webinars, we're incorporating some really key discussions around not only the printers, but also the key target markets and the applications with our key partners with Substrate. So today they'll be sharing a little bit more insight on key applications that we can print on our printers, and then please ask questions and you'll get your answers, and at the end we're happy to record this so you can use this for future references, as well as we'll share this, and if you have any questions on key context, please let us know, and we're going to make this available for you. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Appreciate you and your team.
Our pleasure. So to Ricky's point, you can ask questions. Again, because there are so many folks, I would appreciate if you stay muted. There is a questions panel that you can pull out from the GoToWebinar. I have a visual to it, so as questions come in, I can certainly answer them if that will help keep down again on some of that background music. And this is being recorded also, so we can share the link to that once we're finished. I just want to introduce Ken and Justin quickly. Again, Ricky mentioned that they are joining us live from Plaskolite. We, EFI and Plaskolite, have been working together for years. We absolutely appreciate the partnership, guys. We promote your products, as you can see behind us, and you guys will also be giving a explanation as well about some of your new wonderful products that you have available as well.
Yes, and thank you for the opportunity.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So without further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a quick walk around of the EFI Pro16H, and then I'm going to have Ken and Justin talk you through some of their, again, new and exciting products. You can see we have some dry erase back here, print direct to the second surface, and then you can write on, think of hospital applications, patient information, that sort of stuff. So all really exciting, great stuff. So, EFI Pro16H, it is a hybrid printer, hybrid in the nature that you can print roll-to-roll as well as direct-to-rigid substrates. It is a belt-driven unit and vacuum system to hold your material down. So the vacuum holds your material in place, the belt drives it through the print zone. It's a 65-inch receivable bed, and you can print up to 2 inches in thickness. So when you're talking about some of these heavier duty plywood, Plaskolite has a really great half-inch product that they're going to talk about a little bit later. Absolutely can be run through on the Pro16H. The vacuum table is divided into 4 individually controlled chambers. So when you are running smaller sheets, things of this nature, you can turn off areas of the table that you're not using, and it's going to funnel that available vacuum pressure to the area of the table that you are using. So regardless of your sheet size, you can very quickly and easily open and close the vacuum chambers to get sufficient vacuum for the materials that you're running. Over here we have the Carriage. Name of the game over here for EFI really is ease of use, ease of accessibility. So we want to make sure that you can get to the serviceable parts of the press pretty quick and easy. So when you come in the morning, again, you're just going to slide the cover off. No nuts, bolts, tools, or screws to access the serviceable areas of the Carriage. We are running the Ricoh Gen 5 print heads. You have 1 print head per color. There's 4 colors, CMYK, as well as 2 channels of white, leading and trailing. As we get going printing direct to the Plaskolite clear substrates, you'll see that we can do white over. We also have the ability to do white under for first surface applications, as well as color white color. Ken and Justin have a really great example of what we call a hidden image print, where you, during one time of the day when it's front lit, you see one image, and then when it's backlit, you see a different image. So the printer is perfectly capable to do that, utilizing up to 3 layers in a single run through the printer. So perfect registration up to 3 layers. Built onto the Carriage, we have leading and trailing wrinkle detect. So if you are running a crazy wonky material, edge pops up for whatever reason, it'll come in contact with that wrinkle detect system before it has an opportunity to cause any damage to your lamps or to your jets. Next, we have the LED lamps. We are running Phosion lamps. Everybody knows that LED is a greener solution, it's a cheaper solution. The big benefit here is that with LED you're running at about 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which allows you to run on some really crazy substrates, really thin films, because you're not introducing the heat from that traditional mercury arc. Another major benefit to LED is that it's instant on, instant off. So as we're sitting here, you can see the lamps are not on. They will only turn on when they're over the area that's being printed. So instant on, instant off, on for a fraction of a second. What that translates to you guys is that they're rated for upwards of 10,000 working hours. So when you're talking about 10,000 working hours in the form of fractions of a second, these lamps will outlive the life of the press. Hopefully you're moving on to bigger and better EFI products before you have to worry about your lamps. They are not a consumable for our end users, so really great note there. Between the lamps and the carriage, we have our static ionization. Because you're able to run really thin substrates due to the LED technology, we're finding some of the really thin films, the paper. We've got a lot of folks running on tissue paper or bubble wrap, things of that nature that you can really build up a lot of surface static. So with the static mitigation, you're able to better control that drop. Better controlled drops translates very easily into better print quality. So static mitigation is really going to help with that dot performance. We are heating our secondary tanks, and we're able to do that to help maintain some of that viscosity of the inks within the jets, so you'll get more consistent drop placement as well. We also have, again, ease of use, ease of accessibility. The ink delivery system is right over behind this door. Again, no nuts, bolts, tools, or screws. I am going to go ahead and move the camera quickly so you can see. So the ink delivery system is going to directly mirror your carriage. So you have your CMYK in the center, your leading and trailing channels of white on either side. And again, ease of use, ease of accessibility. All of the plumbing in the Pro16H is self-tensioning, so there's not a large toolkit that you need to invest in order to gain access to the serviceable parts. So again, all self-tensioning. You can see visual inspection of the first and last filters, replace as needed. The ink bottles are 1 liter bottles, 1 liter for each channel, and then 2 for each of your 2 channels of white. You can, in each bottle, there's a fee to return and a float to report level back to the software. Your white, on the other hand, is recirculated up to the secondary tanks. So that will stay recirculating regardless of whether or not you're printing with your white. We understand that as an entry-level product, not everybody necessarily is going to be printing with white every day. So we do keep that recirculated so you don't have to worry about any of the pigments or any of the builds settling in any of your plumbing lines. Are there any questions so far? Again, that questions pane will remain open, so you can type your questions, you can raise your hand, or just go ahead and ask them. All right, so what we're going to do is I'll switch the camera around to the back of the press, and we can talk about material handling. So on the back side of the printer, again, we are hybrid, so we can run roll-to-roll as well as rigid substrates. We will be running the rigid substrates here, again, thanks to Plaskolite. In the meantime, I'm going to show you what it looks like to run roll work. So major benefit to running roll work on a hybrid platform is the nature of the vacuum table and the belt drive system. So you're not worrying about tensioning roll to roll, having to attach to the take-up winder on the front of the press. Once you get your material into the print zone, you can start printing right away. So that's going to save you, every time you load roll material on a hybrid, it's going to save you 3 to 5 feet of material. So huge material savings by not having to attach to that take-up winder on the front. On the back, you have that same thing. Once you run your roll out, you can see I'm running a butt roll right here. Once this roll is run out, I can detach it from its core and run that tail through the entire print zone. So again, ton of savings when you're running roll work on a hybrid platform. All you have to do is get your rolled substrate from the main unwinder into the print zone. Lower your gravity bar. Gravity bar is just going to help keep any wrinkles from getting into the print zone. Vacuum is activated by a foot pedal. There's one on the front of the press, one on the rear of the press, and you can also activate it within the software. So if you can take a peek at the software for me really quickly. Again, you have control over what windows you're looking at. I'm just going to activate my vacuum. Now in the beginning we talked about how you can open and close the vacuum chambers as needed. That's just a very simple and quick ball valve adjustment. Again, on the side of the press, you're just going to open up the door. And what you're seeing here, these 4 blue handles, is how you're going to control your vacuum. You're just going to open and close the ones that you need. Again, funneling the available vacuum to the areas of the table that you're using. So as you saw, currently I have a rolled substrate on. I have my material just in the print zone. I don't have it attached to the take-up winder. I'm not wasting anything. I am just going to scooch it forward really quickly. Again, you have controls over the belt and the carriage right from the software. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is set my gap. What that means is you're setting the distance of where your jets are being fired to the surface of your substrate. All of our alignments are based on a 1.5 millimeter gap. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the software here that we're running a rolled substrate. We're going to tell it where we want to set our gap, and we're going to set the gap. What you're going to see is that the carriage is going to raise up to its highest location. There's a small pneumatic pin on the back right-hand corner of the carriage. Carriage is going to travel to the destination that we put in the software, and then it's going to lower. As it's lowering, that small pneumatic pin in the back right-hand corner of the carriage is going to come in contact with the surface of the substrate, and your gap will automatically be set to that 1.5 millimeters. So you can see the carriage is lowering now. Once it comes in contact, it will stop and go home. Now, if you're running 500 feet, 500 yards, or 5 rolls of the same material, you only have to set the gap that one time. Same holds true for rigid sheets, and you'll see that once we start loading the Plaskolite substrate. So the next thing that we're going to do is a media scan. There's a small optical sensor on the back right-hand corner of the carriage. You can see that it's traveling the full width of the belt. It's going to find the right edge of my rolled substrate, as well as how wide my substrate is. So you could see when I was loading my substrate, I didn't spend any time centering it or measuring it or taking any sort of consideration. Get it off the back roller, into the belt, and start printing right away. So you can see it'll adjust the width of the substrate, as well as the location of that right edge, and then you can start printing right away. Now the changeover time to go from a rolled substrate into a rigid substrate, foam, Sintra, again, the full width, 65 inches up to 2 inches in thickness. All you have to do is take that roll off, lower the fence, and we'll review what that looks like in just a minute.
There was an accident at the cave.
Is there any questions? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I will turn the vacuum off. And again, we'll transition to the back of the press. Oh, we still have one question. 1 second. Craig, great question. Thank you. So yes, we do have some really great recommendations that we can make suggestions for. Big thing is you're going to want to try and run your roll substrate through the center of the printer. The front and rear rollers are slightly domed, so they're slightly larger on the center than they are on the left and the right. So if you're loading your substrate down the center, you'll have better left to right adjustments as the material is going through the print zone. Also, we suggest, and it's a standard operating procedure, if you will, SOP for us here at the demo center, that you don't lock your rear roller down. So we have chucks that you can insert to the cores that will lock them down on that back roller. But we find when you do that, you don't allow any breathing room for your material to shift slightly. So what we suggest is that you take those chucks and you put them to the edges of your rolled substrate and not lock it down, just to the edges. And it's going to minimize how much it walks. And then when it goes through, you'll see a serious reduction in any sort of wrinkling or anything like that on the take-up. Another thing that we do is here at the demo center is we bypass that dancer bar. We find that the dancer, as consistent and as high quality as we'd like it to be, occasionally one side will come up or go down at a different rate than the other side does, and that is going to actually introduce some walking to your rolled substrate. So we suggest that you bypass that dancer, give your material a little bit of breathing room by not locking down those chucks, and then again run it down through the center of the press. Great question, thank you. All right, so we'll transition around to the back. I will talk about how we load rigid substrate, and then our friends Justin and Ken are going to start talking about their wonderful product. So back here, when you're transitioning again from a roll to a rigid, we're going to raise the gravity bar. We can actually keep our rolled substrate right on the printer. Big benefit here is that if you're in the middle of a large production run of banner and a customer comes in and needs a couple pieces of rigid, it's not a huge transition to go back and forth. So you can say, yes, Mr. Customer, I can accommodate your quick job, and you're not spending a lot of time transitioning between substrates. You're going to roll your table over. You will get 2 tables with the purchase of the press, one for the front, one for the back. And they are easy on, attached to these pins right here on either side. And they are designed to be daisy chained, so there's additional pins on either side. So if you're going to be running 4x8s or 5x10s, you can attach additional tables. But again, with the purchase, you'll get one for the front and one for the rear. And also you can see these red handles here. If you're not using your table, you can unlatch these red handles. It'll stand your table up right, and you can push it up against the wall and out of the way, so it's not going to take up a lot of space. So we have one button over here. It's going to lower our media fence. What that is it's difficult to see with the camera system, but it's a aluminum bar that goes across the entire width of the bed. There is a ruler on it, and there's an additional stop block. So if you're going to be running multiple sheets up, so the 24x24 Plaskolite, you can load 2 sheets across, and you would use the additional stop blocks or the rulers to run multiple sheets up so you can get the most production out of your press. For this instance, we're just going to go ahead and use one. So we'll peel our liner. We're going to load our sheet up against the fence and then up against our block. That's our 0-0 registration, so any margins we apply either in Fiery XF or at the print control utility will be based off that 0-0 point. I'm going to raise the fence. I'm going to activate the vacuum again, one of the foot pedal at the front and the rear of the press. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my vacuum, so I'm using chambers 1 and 2, which is the smaller right-hand side of the printer. And then within the software, it's just one quick click. You're going to tell it that you're running a rigid sheet as opposed to the roll. Right here, we're going to set a destination to gap at. And we're going to set gap again. It's going to go to the highest location. Because we told the printer that we're running a rigid sheet, the belt fed the material in from the 0 point into the print zone so that the foot can read where that material is and how thick it is. And then the belt will reverse and put it back to that 0-0 margin. And another question, 1 second.
What material did you have on
The rolled substrate was a lined Melanex from a company called Tekra. I believe it's an 050 or an 070 clear PETG. All right, so with that, within the software you have some options here to do your margins again, control over your lamp, and then control over the belt and the carriage. Within Fiery XF, we imported the job that we wanted to run. We have a built-in white layer, so all we have to do when you're running white, again, second surface to the Plaskolite material. You can see we have our image here, it's already mirrored. Under the spot colors, you can see we have a built-in spot white ink. And under output, we're going to tell the press how we want to print it. So we're going to use the spot color white ink because our friends Justin and Ken built it into their file. we're going to select that we want to print white on color, meaning we're going to print color first, and then we're going to back it with the white because we're second surface, meaning we're going to print on the back side of the material so that you're viewing through the substrate. And then we hit print. Once the file is ripped, we'll import it to the print control utility. You can see here it's going to give you a preview of what it is that we're printing. It's going to give you the output mode. It's going to give you your ink usage, which is a really great benefit. You can get ink consumption ahead of having to print anything, so you can very accurately and quickly quote jobs. We'll go ahead and we'll hit print. And you'll see that here it's going to give us a start time and end time as well as an elapsed time. Now while this is printing, I'm going to go ahead and ask that Ken and Justin come on back. We are printing to their optics DA. They're going to talk about the EDA as well as a couple of other really great substrates that they have available. While this is printing and while Ken and Justin are telling their story, I will be panning back and forth. If you guys want to take some screen grabs, we've got a really great display over here as well that has some really key information to it as well.
Thanks, Tiffany. That was awesome. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you folks today with regard to the products from Plaskolite. My name is Ken Davis, sales representative for Plaskolite. This is Justin Bradford, product development at Plaskolite. Plaskolite is an acrylic manufacturer, polycarbonate manufacturer, PETG manufacturer, and several other substrates located out of Columbus, Ohio. So some of these products, or two of these products we're going to be talking about today, were actually developed with our friends at EFI in mind, and they've been very instrumental, and a big thank you goes out to them because they've been quite successful. So the idea is to kind of bring you up to speed in terms of development of the product, and also most importantly the applications, how they could be used. So the first product we're going to talk about today is our Optics EDA, which stands for Erasable Digital Acrylic. But we figured before we talk about erasable digital acrylic, we should kind of talk about digital acrylic. What is digital acrylic? And printing on acrylic could be challenging. Acrylic has a very, very hard surface to it. And while ink will initially adhere to that surface, it's not a really good sustainable surface. In other words, if you cut it, it could chip or flake in the field. And that was always a challenge. And we got together with EFI and we figured out a way to make that go away. In the past, people would have to use an adhesion promoter on the acrylic in order to get that ink to stick. So an adhesion promoter is a liquid that gets applied to the sheet that then creates a surface for that ink to stick nicely. So it's a little bit labor intensive, it's timely, and it's expensive. So what we did is we came out with a product that we refer to as DA, digital acrylic, which allows you to go immediately to print with no adhesion promoter. And it's been a very, very successful product for us from the standpoint that there's no flaking, there's no chipping. You can print and bleed completely out to the edge. And that's nice, especially if you're cutting multiple images out of the same sheet.
And you can see we didn't have to treat the product that's going through the press right now. Just peel that liner, and then you can print direct to that substrate.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tiffany. A lot of people, what they want to do when they get the DA is they feel like they need to clean the surface with something. They feel like they need to wipe it down, maybe based on previous experiences, but that's something that actually causes a lot of problems. It actually causes a lot of adhesion problems because a lot of the cleaners will actually leave a residue on the surface, or the towel they're using, to leave some flakes, leave some debris on the surface. So it's a good point that it's literally print ready. You just peel the masking film and you're ready to print.
It's funny. I remember meeting with some people. I'd go into a facility and they'd be standing next to their printer, and you've got the gentleman who's running the equipment and maybe a sales guy there at the same time, and I'll say, have you folks had any problems printing on the acrylic? And the guy who's printing says, no. I mean, this stuff would print on you or I if we're laying on the flatbed. And he's right. And the sales guy's saying, yeah, we're having problems. This stuff goes out into the field and sometimes will come back chipped or scraped or something like that. And the DA kind of eliminates that. So after the success of the DA, we started to get inquiries. What else could we do? Could you make it an abrasion-resistant surface on the other side? Could you make it erasable? Could you make it anti-graffiti? And we came out with the Optics EDA, which I'll let Justin kind of talk about a little bit.
Yeah, the other interesting product we have too, in addition to the EDA, is a non-glare version of DA. So the idea is you would print on the second surface, and then the first surface has a matte finish. It just gives it a different look. It gives it, if you're looking for an ADA compliant sign, something like that, you've got that non-glare finish on the one surface of the material.
Yeah. Particularly in interior applications, to your point.
So as Ken said, as Tiffany has now printed, the EDA is designed to be second surface printed. So you got the second surface print ready surface. The opposite side has a coating on it. The coating does a few things. It adds abrasion resistance, graffiti resistance, and it also supports dry erase. We get the question a lot: what markers work with it? I literally went to Staples, Office Depot, all the major retailers of markers, and I bought everything they had, every brand they had, the low odor, the regular, all different kinds of dry erase markers. And what we did was we wrote on the material and confirmed that it erased right away. And there's really no ASTM test method that says that it has to be this requirement in order to be claimed as a dry erase. So what we did was we left the ink on the EDA for 15 weeks. And after 15 weeks, we went back and we erased it, erased the material. Some of the markers had to be re-wetted, but other than that, it works fabulously. It's a great product.
What's nice about it too, I'm sure some of you folks have seen these dry erase boards that after a while, they kind of have a little ghosting to it in that possibly the last image or the last thing they wrote on it sort of doesn't completely remove, which is very different. With our EDA, you'll get complete removal and no ghosting to it.
Yeah, if you ever get the opportunity to come here to EFI, they have a lot of our EDA in their conference rooms. It's phenomenal. So every conference room is unique. They've got great patterns on the walls, and what they've done is they've printed the second surface of the EDA, and they've made it to match the decor in each of their conference rooms, each of their unique conference rooms. So if you've got applications where someone's wanting to print their company logo on the second surface of the material, it's a perfect product. So I guess transitioning into some of the markets, some of the nitty gritty is where would people use this and why would they use this?
Absolutely. So in addition to being right on wipe off, don't forget it's anti-graffiti and it's abrasion resistance, which is pretty cool. So those could be different applications. So if you think of prospective users, for instance, a hospital environment, hope nobody has the opportunity to be in a hospital, but if you ever do, you'll see the board that they have up front, and it'll have your doctor's name, your nurse's name, have a nice day, what the temperature is outside, what day of the week it is outside. But take that a step further, and how cool would it be to have printed in the background, Meridian Healthcare, hope you're going to have a fast recovery, whatever the case may be, some design, and then having the right-on wipe-off surface on the front side. So we're seeing a lot of applications in that hospital or medical environment. That's been pretty strong for us. Also, restaurant menu boards, right? So if you go into a restaurant, all of us have been into a restaurant that will show what the specials are for today. They might have some nice graphics on it, and that's really taken off for us. The beautiful thing about acrylic, particularly versus other substrate, it's a very, very bright material. Acrylic has got a light transmission of about 92–94%.
So there's a quick question on whether or not the optics DA or EDA can be cut by hand.
Yes. So you could either cut it with a saw, or you could cut it with a jigsaw, or you could do a score and snap type cutting, if that answers your question. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that.
It can be routed, it can be laser cut, it can be, there's other forms of cutting it, but to answer your specific question, I guess cutting it by hand, yes, it can.
Yeah. And with any common woodworking tools, it's acrylic, which is a very, very versatile material. Another application which I thought was one of the most interesting, and that's what's neat about these technologies, that EFI is asking us to talk about. It just opens up so many different markets and so many different opportunities and ideas. And this one particular idea I thought was pretty striking. We presented the EDA to a graphics company, and they got their wheels spinning a little bit, and they went to a bank. There's a bank with maybe about 25, 30 locations. And yeah, what they did is, and Tiffany, you had the proper term for it. I call it white color, but I think it was
So it's a day-night backlit we call hidden image.
hidden image.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to adopt that. So the neat thing was they go to this bank and they printed this. And this is not the print they printed, but I'm going to show you the concept. I'll describe the print they printed, but I'm going to show you the concept. So what they did is they took the EDA and they printed on the front a Vermont home. And the Vermont home looked a little bit tired. You know, it had the mountains in the back, but you'll see that it needed shingles. You know, the shutters were kind of falling off. It had no landscaping. It needed to be painted. It needed some work. So when it was illuminated, however, a different image appeared, kind of like this. I don't know if this is going to come out specifically, but this is one example, non-illuminated, but you'll notice if it illuminates, what I'm trying to point out there are the flowers on the bottom, right? So the flowers will disappear when the light disappears. So it comes on when the light comes on. So if you think, I don't know if anybody's ever been online at a bank. I certainly have been. And they had these, while you're waiting online, they had 2 of these cabinets per bank. So you're standing there and you see this Vermont house. It's a nice house, but could use work. But when they illuminated the house, it had this beautiful, you know, it was all painted, it looked great. And then they wrote on the front surface, home equity loans, 4.5%, have a great day, thank you for visiting the bank, and today's date and the weather forecast. And you're standing there for, I don't know, it feels to be hours, but you see this cycle several times. And I thought that was a great idea. Long story short, they ended up putting 2 in every single location, and they're using it today. And I think that's a great idea. You know, trying to get your mind spinning a little bit.
Yeah, the other interesting thing I've seen recently are in lean manufacturing facilities where they have a workflow board where, you know, they might be charting output or they might be charting rejects versus, you know, good finished product, where you would want something, a consistent graphic printed on the second surface of that board where you can just, you know, dry erase you know, that day's manufacturing the day's output for that specific cell or that specific manufacturing site. So we're just trying to get the wheels turning as to who may benefit or who may be interested in this type of product.
Or office interiors, think of that. You know, whether it be wall partitions, you know, printing wall partitions, don't forget it's abrasion resistant, it's chemical resistant, so you could use Windex on it without affecting it, which you really can't do with exposed acrylic. So it's got an abrasion resistant, chemical resistant surface, so you could use it as office interiors. And you could have heavy ink saturation. It becomes more gradual, lighter, 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 and then it could be clear towards the top. You could use it just on the wall for office environments where people could just write down free thoughts in a boardroom or a meeting room. So there's a lot of different applications for it, and it's been very, very successful for us. You know?
Yeah, retail applications where they may want to maybe they want to highlight a certain product that day or, you know, a certain message. We have a lot of retailers that, you know, point of purchase displays where they may want to write a custom message or bring attention, I guess, to a certain sale item.
And if I may, there is a question online about how the hidden image is set up. So what happens is, again, with this unit, you can run 3 layers in a single one through the press. So what you're going to do is your first image is going to be what you want to show through. And then you'll do a flood of white, and your second image is going to be what we call your day or front lit image. So in this example, the front lit image, or the daytime image, is a simple field, sort of a matted, muted background, and then your image to show through has the sunflowers and has this illuminated background. So it's a little bit difficult to see via the camera, but basically you're going to oversaturate that second image. You're going to really have that bright vibrancy. The white flood is going to act like a diffuser. So your front lit is diffused or blocked by that white layer. And then your third image, the one that you want to show through when backlit, when illuminated, is going to be that first layer. So you have 2 separate files utilizing that middle flood of white. I have some additional samples that I can send out or some file prep specs that I can share with you guys. If you want something afterwards, feel free to reach out to myself or Ricky, and we can get that for you.
Thank you. That's a great explanation. Appreciate it, Tiffany. So the next part, and are there any other questions with regard to the DA or the EDA?
Hey, Ken and Justin, just a comment. I mean, you know, it's interesting application-wise in the different target markets that, you know, we may not be thinking of, but they're there for us to go after, which is really great. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. And that's kind of the idea. You know, when this particular graphics company thought of this idea, there weren't, you know, 30 people knocking on this bank's door with the same idea, right? So how do you even put a value on it? How do you price that out? So, you know, price wasn't an option. The concept was an option to help them sell home equity loans, and it was very, very successful. So thanks for that point. Absolutely.
And there was a question online on whether or not that application is done in 2 passes. And on this unit, yes, it is done in 2 passes. So pass 1 would be your first initial oversaturated hidden image with white over. And then your second pass would be that second image, so that front lit image, how you want to view it during the day. So on this 16H, yes, it would be 2 passes through the printer.
So the second product we're going to talk about is Vivac. So Vivac is a trade name owned by Plaskolite, and it is a PETG plastics. And a PETG plastic, the best way to relate to it is kind of like a soda bottle. You know, that's kind of the plastic. That's a PET without the G, but it's kind of the same thing. So it's very, very flexible and very, very durable and possesses a lot of unique characteristics. So this is the Vivac right here, and you can see how it could be cold bent. It could also be vacuum formed. This product is extremely durable. It's a very, very flexible polymer. And one of the applications we'll talk about a little bit later on, you think of printing this, and you know, this is a small piece to do it, but you can kind of get the idea. You can create a round barrel, right? You create a round barrel, a 4-foot by 8-foot piece, and immediately create a freestanding display, you know, a printed freestanding display that retail operations have put anything in there from stuffed animals to basketballs, whatever the case may be. It's relatively inexpensive to build, and it's very, very impactful, especially when you print it.
So again, this product is print ready. There's no surface treatment needed. You don't need to do anything with it. You don't need to clean the surface. It's print ready out of the box, off the pallet. Just peel the masking. It is printable on both sides of the material. We do also offer a wide range of thickness for this product, primarily in sheet form, and we run anywhere from 20 thousandths of an inch up to 1/2 of 1 inch thick material.
Absolutely.
So wide range. 4x8s, we also do some run to size if you need a custom size. If a 4x8 doesn't give you a great yield, we do have some run to size options.
So the Vivac itself, the light transmission isn't as high as acrylic. It's somewhere in the 80s in terms of light transmission versus in 92, 94 for acrylic. It's often used in thinner gauges because it is so flexible. And another thing you can do with this material very, very successfully, as a matter of fact, Sean just did this a few minutes ago prior to us going on air, vacuum formed parts. So this was printed, and EFI has got the ink technology that once it's printed flat, it could be formed. So you think of the markets and the technology that could take a formed part, whether it be bicycle helmets, whether it be displays, whether it be any type of design. It's amazing where this could go. So with the EFI inks being stretchable like this on our Vivac that could be formed, it's a great one too. Excellent.
Can you do a quick close-up on that so we can see the image? Yeah, if we get the camera up, yeah, that would be great.
That was just formed a few minutes ago. It's from a flat sheet. It's printed and then formed. And you can see the definition and you can see the draw is pretty significant. So that really
Beautiful.
Yeah, that really separates what you're capable of doing with the Butec.
There are a couple of different applications here. We just talked about the cold bend and then the thermoformable bends. The cold bend is something that you can absolutely do utilizing the standard Pro Graphics ink set, the 3M ink set, or one of the other 3 ink sets available for the Pro16H. The thermoformable applications do require a specific ink set that we call SD or Super Draw. So that is a different ink set, and it's a different curing technology, both still owned by EFI and still very viable solutions with the Plaskolite substrate.
And one thing to keep in mind, this is an interior product, the Vivac product, as opposed to the acrylic, which is typically exterior. If you were to use it as an exterior product, you'd have to put some sort of coating or laminate on it. So, some of the key markets. Point of purchase display, which we just talked about. You could really separate yourself. I think we've all sat at a restaurant where you've got the little tabletop tents, they refer to them as, which can be either strip heat bent or cold bent. So you could print that on a large sheet, cut them to size, and either cold bend fold or heat bend fold for those tabletops. And that's table tent. And that's a very strong market, which is great. Any type of interior wayfinding, we've printed on Vivac numbers for hotels, interior wayfinding in large facilities. It just goes on and on. But most importantly, for any area that requires a high impact, that requires the flexibility, those are really your applications at the end of the day. So what's neat about both these products is the idea is to give you folks some inspiration in terms of the capability and the flexibility of using EFI, the ink, the Butec equipment, and the Plaskolite product to really develop, design, and innovate ideas that can help you sell and become even more successful than you are. So.
I also want to just point out really quickly while this is running, we are running back to a rolled substrate. So while Ken and Justin were talking, I switched over a little bit so you can see again how quick and easy it is to change materials. This would hold true between different thicknesses and sizes of rigid substrates as well. What we're doing here, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. We've talked a lot about second surface printing and the capabilities with second surface and the different fun activities that you can do with the Plaskolite products. That is also driven by the fact that we're able to run multiple layers in a single run through the printer. So what we're seeing here, we talked about the LED instant on, instant off. You can see those blue lights are instant on, instant off, independent of each other, and only on when they're over the printed ink that is to be cured. And you can see here on the back side of that white image, you're seeing that dark line. That's actually our first surface print image being backed up by that flood coat of white ink. Now also, while Ken and Justin were talking, you guys had access to the software. You may or may not have seen how quick and easy it is to apply that individual white ink. So within Fiery XF, you have the ability to do a spot white, which we did with Ken and Justin's original Plaskolite dry erase optics DA. But we also have the ability for Fiery to extrapolate white ink data based on your image. So Fiery XF does have the ability to go pixel for pixel. It'll apply white ink only in the areas that contain CMYK data. You can do the inverse of that, or again, you can build out your own custom spot color white ink file, such as Ken and Justin did here for these prints that you can see in the front. So we had a custom spot white on the notepad that would illuminate just that notepad area. And then we had it behind the logo here on the It Works, again, Optics EDA. Now I see a couple more questions have come in. I'm going to go ahead and answer those just a second. So what quality setting are we running in right now? This is what we consider the POP mode. This mode here is in a single layer, 178 square feet per hour. This is sort of a good go-to mode for the POP or retail market, the folks where your viewing distance is going to be, around 4 or 5 feet. So retail displays, point of purchase. We also have a really, really great successful print mode. It's called the Distant Outdoor View. If you're doing any sort of Coroplast signage or construction signage, windscreen, construction, fence mesh, you can run at just over 600 square feet per hour. Again, really great print quality. You're not going to see, really any sort of artifact of pass-to-pass banding. There is a potential for a step, but again, the viewing distance there is 10 to 12 feet, and it's short-term install applications. So this mode here in 2-layer, being POP, is, let's see, 17, 20, like 80 square feet per hour. So I'm going to ask that Ken and Justin join me again back on screen, and if you guys want to unmute as you have questions, or if there's something else that you would like to see either by our friends at Plaskolite or off of the Pro16H, now would be the time.
Yeah, and as questions come up, we're certainly glad to take them today. If there are any questions, you can feel free to reach out to us at Plaskolite. The phone number to get a hold of us would be 800-848-9124.
Which you can see in the background there.
It's on the board. Again, 800-848-9124. You can just ask to speak to one of us personally, or you can, anyone in sales or customer service will be glad to help. Dennis Farr is our director of sign and graphics, so we've got his name and his contact info on the board behind us. But Dennis is a great contact. Also, anyone in sales or customer service will be glad to help with any questions you have about our substrate and the capabilities. And then obviously Tiffany is very helpful regarding the printer.
And also, Ricky,
Tiffany, Tiffany, I did get a.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, I got a question, and it was related to the thermoforming ink available on our products, and I shared with the individual, but I want to share with everybody here. The thermoforming is on the H1625 SD because it is using a special SD ink set. And then we do offer the thermoforming on the ViewTech higher end products as well. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody received that answer.
Yep, so the application of thermoforming does require the specific ink set. We call it, to Ricky's point, SD or SuperDraw. So the idea there is that you're printing to a flat surface. You're going to use traditional mercury arc cure as opposed to LED cool cure that we have here on the Pro16H, because the ink set to become formable requires a different type of cure. So you're going to utilize the 1625 SD traditional mercury arc and the SD ink set for the thermoformable applications, and then on the super wide format we have a traditional GS3250 also utilizing the mercury arc cure again. With the TF ink set or the SD ink set SuperDraw or thermoformable ink set in order to get that draw. The Pro16H by default uses the 3M MCS warranted ink. It's a very flexible ink set. It's designed for vehicle wraps. It's designed to be flexible. Again, nature of hybrid, we understand that people are going to be printing direct to boards as well as to rolled products. So the 3M MCS ink standard for the 16H does have some stretch, but the end application is not designed for that thermoformable application. So thank you, Ricky. Any other questions? Yeah, there's a few coming in. Give me just a second. The spelling of the second product, David. If you're talking about the thermoformable application. Oh, the Vivac?
V-I-V-A-K. It's their trade name, Plaskolite's trade name for a generic product that is PETG, sometimes affectionately referred to as PETG, but Vivac is the trade name for Plaskolite.
And if we could maybe just put the camera on the banner. I think the banner actually shows that, as well as the contact info and really the markets that we've discussed, not only on that substrate, but also on the EDA erasable material as well. So just want to make sure everybody can either get a snapshot. We will also send that information out so you all have it.
Yeah, I would say, Ricky, we also have the handout. I don't know if it was attached to the go-to webinar, but if not, we certainly have all of the registration information and can provide that. Also, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is being recorded, so you guys will have access to not only all of the printed data, but also to the conversations and the question and answer that we've been working through during this webinar.
And I'd also like to add that Plaskolite has got a very strong sales force throughout the country, so if any folks need any individual attention or would like a review of the substrates that are available from Plaskolite, I'd be more than happy to get together and meet with you.
Yeah, you can reach out to
Hey,
myself.
Tiffany, there was a question on. Yep, absolutely. And there was a question on the two different materials that we discussed today for the real estate market. Any thoughts about the real estate market and home builders?
Yeah, real estate market would be great. I mean, you could just print on one side. You could have abrasion resistant on the other side. So you don't have to worry about any type of leaves rubbing up against it and degrading the surface. So I think that's a great opportunity and application.
Yep, and you know, to kind of coattail on Ricky, also in regard to Pro16H specifically, I've got a wood sample over here, again, some construction signage. We also, you know, Coroplast, Sintra, PVC. The possibilities really are endless. Again, the only limitation on this unit is less than 65 inches wide and less than 2 inches thick. I've got our product marketing manager behind us, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've printed on cowhides, I've printed on window mesh, I've printed on shower curtains, bubble wrap. We're printing on water bottles this week, utilizing a jig. So, you know, real estate market is great and it's huge and growing. There's a ton of Coroplast applications there. There's a ton, again, of this abrasion resistant product from Plaskolite. But as far as the unit as a whole, I mean, possibilities really are endless. You're limited to, you know, the level of creativity that you have on staff. Again, I have a sheet of birchwood here that we're going to be printing on for our next demonstration, but the possibilities really are endless.
Now, there's people in the art world who are printing very, very interesting art-like images, and they want to protect the surface, that they'll use the EDA to keep it from scratching or getting abraded, or from fading from people using harsh cleaners on it. It's a growing market.
It really is. Any other questions? Danny, is there anything else coming in? Nope. All right, excellent. Well, I really genuinely appreciate Justin and Ken. I absolutely appreciate your time again. You've been a great partner with us, and I think we've proven today that the success of your product and the success of our unit is a direct reflection of that relationship. Everybody online, I absolutely appreciate taking your time out of the day. I know it's difficult, especially in a production world, to step away for an hour. Hopefully it was during your lunch break and we got to keep you entertained for a bit. So I appreciate everybody's time. Ricky, as always, thank you again. Appreciate it. Danny, thank you for the support.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Tiffany.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the effort.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Thank you all very much.